Late Night Louie coming at you. Episode 268 of the Louie T Network podcast. Lot to get to tonight. Game 5 of the NBA Finals is in the books. Warriors take a 3-2 series lead. The last time I spoke to you, we were going into game number 4. I told you what I thought would happen, and I told you what I thought would happen and might happen going into the weekend. And so now we're here. 2 games have been played since the last time we spoke. We'll kind of recap those 2, put a bow on them, and won't really get into game 6 because we'll have another podcast before then. But I do want to talk about the last 2 games of that series. Also, I've been talking about Baker Mayfield and talking about that situation, and we've talked about getting to that. We're going to get to that tonight at some point. Also, a lot of things going on in the National Football League. Some we've talked about, some we haven't. But one thing has remained constant throughout this entire offseason. It is definitely the offseason of the wide receiver. We'll talk about that in great detail tonight and then some on the 268th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 268th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. A lot to get to tonight. I wanted to give a big shout out to my Atlanta Braves. Hold on, let me say that correctly. My Major League Baseball World Series defending champion, Atlanta Braves. Let me put some respect on their names as they are riding a 12-game win streak, about to be 13, as they have their foot knee-deep in the anal cavity of the Washington Nationals as we speak in the 9th inning to make it 13 in a row for the good guys. Bravo, bravos. Keep it going. And it feels good to see those boys doing what I knew they were capable of doing. So wanted to bring that up real quick. Also, NBA Finals. We talked about game 4, and I gave you my prediction, thought that the Celtics would win. I thought the desperation factor for them winning that game would be there because they could ill afford to fall down 2-1 in the series. So actually, that was game 3. It was game 3 and game 4 that we talked about. And we were supposed to be back yesterday. Life happens. So push the podcast to today. This will be a 2 podcast a week again. So Tuesday and Thursday. And we didn't get to talk about game 5. I wanted to preview game 5. I would have been wrong. I predicted that the Celtics would win game 5. My dad predicted that they would lose. So I would have been wrong. I hadn't been wrong to that, to this point up until then, but I thought they would win game 5. They hadn't lost 2 consecutive games all postseason. They had been outstanding on the road in those types of situations, and they had everything they wanted. Let's not skip over games. So the last time we spoke, it was going into game 3, and I told you what I thought would happen, and Boston did exactly what I thought they were going to do. They protect home court because they could ill afford to lose game 3, knowing that the Warriors were a battle-tested team, that if they smelt blood in the water, they would go for the clean sweep in Boston and go back home 3-1 with a chance to end this thing. And there was just no way Boston could allow that to happen. So I knew that the desperation factor would be at an all-time high for game number 3. It was. They went out, they did what they needed to do, and they coasted to a victory and got the 2-1 series lead. But I thought similar to what we've seen in previous games with this Celtics team, specifically game number 5 in the series versus Milwaukee when it was tied at 2 and they had a chance to take a commanding 3-2 lead. Instead, they lose that game. Then they have to go on the road to Milwaukee to win game 6 to get it back to Boston for game 7. And specifically at home, game 6 against Miami with a chance to end that series up 3-2. They lose. Jimmy Butler goes bananas, and they have to then go to Miami to win game 7. It felt similar to that. So They had an opportunity to really put a stranglehold on the series. Up 2-1 at home, golden opportunity to really put your foot on the necks of the Golden State Warriors. And we saw what being young in that spot means. They didn't have enough poise. I don't think they took care of the basketball at all, which has really been their biggest detriment to me to date in this series has been the lack of care of the basketball. I've talked about that ad nauseum. There's really not much more to say on that topic other than you have to take care of the basketball. You have to value possessions, not just in the playoffs, but especially you get to this point of the season when we're talking about an NBA championship on the line. You get to the NBA finals, you have to take care of the basketball, and the Celtics refuse to take care of the basketball. It was their demise in game 4. It was their demise in game 5. And not to mention Steph Curry putting on an all-time performance in an NBA Finals road game. It was spectacular. 43 points, hit every big shot, carried that team, and put them in a position to go back home tied 2-2, and that's exactly what they did. And it was a virtuoso performance for a guy that is after his first career NBA Finals MVP. This means something to Steph. I've said this already. His legacy is set in cement. I was having a discussion with somebody on socials about his legacy, and I'm like, and that person was like, his legacy is already set. He doesn't need an NBA Finals MVP to cement anything. And while that's true, players, there's this one of the criteria for being, the best, one of the best. One of the things they look at is NBA Finals MVPs. Like, yeah, we can talk about his greatness. He changed the game forever with his three-point shooting. He's the greatest three-point shooter we've ever seen. And we know what he's capable of when he gets hot. And he's changed an entire generation of players coming up who now look to shoot the basketball and shoot it with unlimited range. He did that. That's all Steph Curry. He changed the way that the game will be played forever. And so he's left an indelible mark on the NBA, no matter what happens. But when we start talking about the Kevin Durant's and his contemporaries and the guys he played against, we start talking about the best of all time, and we want to put him in the top 10. That's when you start going to, hey, did he have a Finals MVP? Was he ever the best guy on his team in the Finals? And look, he was the best player on his team when they won that Finals with Andre Iguodala winning MVP, but he wasn't the best player in that series. It was Andre Iguodala. I mean, you say what you want to say, but Steph wasn't great in that series. So he made it easy for them to give that, MVP to Andre Iguodala. So this is an opportunity, and I think he really wants this badly. And that game 4 performance, I think it cinched it. It clinched it. Should they win the finals? And it's not a done deal yet, despite them being up 3-2. This series is far from over. So he was outstanding, scored 43, led the Warriors on the road in game 4 to a victory, sent them back to Golden State, or San Francisco, rather, tied at 2. And I thought Boston would go back to Golden State and win. And I said the adjustment that needed to be made after Curry scorched them. And really, I was talking about this adjustment after game 2, because you could clearly see that the only guy that could really hurt them in this series was Steph Curry. The only guy that could carry this team was Steph Curry. So if, there's this prevailing thought, you're either in this school of thought or you're in this other school of thought. And you're either in the school of thought of, okay, I'm going to let that star player get his, but I'm not going to let the other guys impact the game. Okay, so if he wants to go off for 38, as long as I keep Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Jordan Poole, and all of these other guys that are role players in check, we should be fine. But if we let him get 29, but we also let, Klay Thompson get 21, and Wiggins get 19 and Poole get 18, we're probably going to lose the basketball game. So we really want to minimize their impact. He can have his, they just can't get theirs. I'm of the thought when your role players and these other guys are being inconsistent, I'm of the mindset, hey, attack the star player. Don't let him carry. We saw Jimmy Butler do it in the series before with the Celtics and the Heat. A star player can carry a team that is lifeless if you allow them to. So my whole thought process was, don't let Steph Curry be the guy that beats you in this series. Make it be Andrew Wiggins. Make it be Klay Thompson. Make it be Jordan Poole. Hell, make it be Draymond Green, which we know he's incapable of doing. Like, make it somebody else. So after game 4, I said, make the adjustment, Ime Udoka. Make the adjustment, because Steph Curry right now is single-handedly defeating you in this series. The reason it's tied is because of Steph Curry. Stop him from hurting you. So you go to game 5 and they make the adjustment. My adjustment was hedge hard. I put this out on Twitter. I'm either hedging hard on the screen that's being set, or I'm double teaming and I'm trapping and getting the ball out of his hands. You open up, a can of worms when you trap, because now you're playing, essentially 3-on-4 defense, right? 3 guys to cover 4, offensive players. It's tough. You don't want to put yourself in that position because you give up a lot of layups or open looks, because now the helper's got to help the helper, and there's a lot of rotation. Somebody's going to end up with an open shot. But that's the price I was willing to pay to not let Steph Curry beat me. But what they started doing was they started face guarding him. They started running over the top of everything, which they should have been doing it. But they also, this was the thing that they weren't doing, they also had the guy whose man was setting the pick, him hedging hard, which is what I said I would be doing. You got to be up on that screen, which will allow the guy that's getting screened to get back into the play. And then you can either trap, or that guy can fall back and he can get back and recover to his man. And now Steph Curry's going to have a much more difficult shot. They really got into his airspace. They made him work. And he had a rough go of it. His first career game in the postseason where he did not make a single 3-point shot. It does not happen for Steph Curry very often, but it happened in that game. And so they did everything they wanted to do. They made it tough on Steph Curry. He had a miserable night. He started pressing, and yet they had no answer for Andrew Wiggins. Klay Thompson started to make shots. Jordan Poole made his fair share of shots. And Draymond Green was much more aggressive on the offensive side of the basketball. And your end result was the others beat you. And that's what I prefer. If they're going to beat me, it won't be Steph Curry. I dare Andrew Wiggins to go on the road and do it. And he's been probably the most consistent player for the Warriors, not named Steph Curry, in the series. I dare you to go score 26 or whatever you had in this past game. I dare you to go do that again. Okay. I dare Klay Thompson to make 5 3-pointers, because I think that's the first time in the series he's made more than 3 or 4. I dare you to do that again, do it again, and this time on the road. I don't really worry about Jordan Poole as much, but, he chipped in and he did his thing. And I thought the turnovers, the inability to make shots in situations, the first and the fourth quarter, the Celtics were ice cold, and it hurt them. But also, and I said this in game 4, the shot selection I thought was questionable at best. In game 4, you were down 3, 4 straight possessions, and you shot a 3 and missed all 4 possessions. And that's when the Warriors were able to take advantage of your open possessions and finally run away and hide in that particular game. I didn't love the shot selection, but I'm not one to really, go ham on shot selection too often, because if it goes in, you're not complaining, right? So my biggest thing is take care of the basketball. At least get a shot up. And they didn't do that enough. Too many turnovers. But also, I thought that the Jordan Poole 3-point shot really broke their spirits. When you're down 12 at halftime and you come out and you have the kind of quarter the Celtics had in the third quarter, keep in mind, they've been dominated in every single third quarter of this series, right? The Celtics have dominated, or have been dominated, by the Warriors in every third quarter of this series. And then you wake up and have another one of those quarters where you just go bananas like they did in the fourth quarter of game 1. And you look up at the end of that quarter, you're up 2, you're feeling good about what you've done, 14-point swing in the quarter. You're now up, after trailing by 12 at halftime. And then Jordan Poole hits that 3, that bank 3, to end the quarter for the second time in the series. And I blame the Celtics for that. They quit on that play as if it was done. Nobody got back on defense. Nobody made it a tough shot. and he made it. And I thought that broke their spirits because they looked up at the scoreboard, and instead of being up 2, they were down 1. For all the work that they put in that third quarter to be down 1, they looked dejected. They came out and they played the fourth quarter, the first 5-6 minutes of the fourth quarter, like they were defeated. And the Warriors went on a run. And I thought the Celtics lost their composure. Marcus Smart, look, I thought the officiating, for the first time in the series, I thought the officiating was a little bit slanted. I didn't love the calls, but it wasn't egregious enough to be complaining about. But we saw the flop from Jordan Poole where he didn't even get hit in the face, and he did all of that, and they called an offensive foul. I thought that they teed up Marcus Smart when he started to get aggressive with them, and he had every right to be pissed off. So you have the Klay Thompson push off, clearly an offensive foul. You got 2 officials standing right there. He pushes off, gets a wide open look at the 3, and he knocks it down. Then you come back down 2 possessions later. Jordan Poole is getting in his face. And so, he's already had a word with the officials, and Jordan Poole is all up on him. And I swear I can't stand Jordan Poole. Like, after what he did to Ja Morant, he's starting to give me dirty vibes. I don't really have any affinity. At first, I had no problems with Jordan Poole. I'm starting not to like Jordan Poole. Anyway, he's all up on Marcus Smart, so he gives him a little elbow, right? And then, he gets back into his space, and Smart kind of waves him off, but he never touches him. And he flops, and they give him the call, offensive foul on Smart. Smart loses his cool, ends up getting teed up. I thought they started to lose their composure. It was too much complaining to the officials after no call. Look, both sides were going to the rack and not getting calls. Steph Curry was getting hacked, going to the rim. To me, make the adjustment. Okay, I love what Marcus Smart is doing. He's going 4 to 6 feet from the basket, stopping, pulling up, and taking a little jumper, okay? Look, you're not getting all the way to the rim without getting hacked, and they're not going to call it. Either you're going to finish through the contact, which the Celtics players clearly are not capable of doing. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are not comfortable finishing through contact, especially from the left side of the basket. So they're turning the ball over. They're getting in the air. They don't have anything to do with it. They're turning it over. They're getting fouled at the rim, and they're not getting the calls. And so I thought they lost their cool. They lost their composure, and they allowed the veteran team. I mean, Draymond Green's getting in their head at the end of the third quarter, or I think it was a timeout they took. Jason Tatum had the ball. He's walking, telling them to give him the ball. Jordan Poole's following up, trying to get the ball. I'm like, y'all kick your ass to your bench. And the officials aren't really doing anything about it. Like, it's little petty stuff like that, but that's the game the Warriors play. And if you let them get in your head, and if you start chirping with the officials, you get out of your game, which is what they want ultimately. And I thought it happened in game 5. And so the Warriors ran away, hid with that game. They're up 3-2. This series is far from over. I said this when it started, even after Celtics won game 1. I said, for those of you out there that think this is a 5-game series, you're crazy. This is a 6 or a 7-game series. I think the Celtics are going to go home and win in game 6, but we'll talk about that on Thursday's show as we'll preview game number 6. So enough basketball talk. I know some of you are like, all right, enough of that, Louie T. All right, enough. Okay, let's jump into today's gem dropping session. Shall we? I believe we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolled up with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So I was sitting down thinking to myself, this has been a really wild offseason. We've talked about that ad nauseum because this is one of the craziest NFL offseasons we've ever seen. But I said, I want to take it a step further. We've talked about quarterbacks. We've talked about these trades. We've talked about a lot of different things that have transpired in this offseason. But what we really haven't focused in on is the fact that these receivers are getting paid and that this has been the offseason of the wide receiver. Just sit back and think about it. Think about all the guys that have been traded. Think about all the guys that have gotten traded and then gotten paid. Think about all the guys that have gotten paid with extensions to stay with the ball club that they're currently with. Think about the guys that are waiting for an extension with the teams that they're currently with. So think about all the news that we've heard about wide receivers this offseason. It seems like we don't go a full week of news cycle in the NFL without a receiver getting new money. And that's unheard of. So I wanted to chronicle the offseason with the receiver position in particular, because this has been the offseason of the wide receiver. These dudes are getting paid. Okay. So let's talk about the wide receiver position, because I think there's a couple of guys in here that you might have forgotten that got money this offseason, because so many receivers have gotten real money, real tangible, good, wholesome, hearty money. So, and there's a lot of guys that they aren't getting big money, but it's good money for them at the receiver position. This has been one of the richest off seasons in NFL history for a wide receiver. I mean, just period, in general, that position. And I mean, obviously, you're to expect that as the cap continues to go up and you see these teams spending more and more money, you're gonna see that. But to have this many guys, that's the thing that makes this such a unique offseason. It's not uncommon to have 5 or 6 guys get good money. We got probably upwards of 12 to 15 dudes that have gotten broken off this offseason at the receiver position in particular. And then you still got 3 or 4 that are on deck waiting for theirs. Like, the oven is over there. Their bread is in the oven baking right now. And at any moment, that oven can go off, bing, and that player is going over to the oven to pull their bread out. So let's talk about the offseason for the wide receiver position and these dudes getting paid, getting to the bag. So I'm going to go in order of value of contracts. Okay, we won't get into the specifics of each of these contracts that were handed out, but we'll go with AAV. Okay, now, again, I've explained this to you. AAV is what these players, these agents, they talk about when, looking at the pecking order. Where do I fit? The AAV comes into play there. But at the end of the day, the money that and the number that makes the most difference, the one that is the most important and impactful, is that guaranteed number. You could be getting paid $30 million a year, but if that guaranteed money ain't right, who gives a shit? I'll give you a great example as we get into these receivers as to how, guaranteed money can trump everything else. So we start with Michael Gallup in Dallas, signing a deal that's going to essentially make him $11.5 million per year in Big D. Remember, they traded Amari Cooper so that they could make space to give Michael Gallup this deal. And the reason that they wanted to keep Gallup versus Cooper was because of the price tag. Cooper was making $20 million per year. Meanwhile, they got Gallup because he was coming off of an injury-riddled season. They got him for $11.5. They're like, hey, we know this guy's just as good as Amari Cooper when healthy, and we're gonna pay him a fraction of the cost. That's a win for Dallas. You still got CeeDee Lamb. They're going to draft well. They've drafted a couple more receivers. They're going to be just fine at the wide receiver position. And so Michael Gallup gets 11.5 in terms of AVV. The next player is a guy that just got one more guy. Allen Robinson. Remember, had been franchise tagged for a couple of years with Chicago. They finally cut him loose, couldn't afford to franchise him again. He goes to the LA Rams, signs a deal that will pay him $15.5 million per year. He's getting up there in age, so that deal kind of fits the timeline of where the Rams are in their maturation. They're looking to win a Super Bowl either this year or the year after that. That's when things will start to unravel, and I think that's when Sean McVay is going to head for the exits. But in the meantime, they got a guy like Allen Robinson to couple with Cooper Kupp, and they're going to look to try to really, push all their chips to the center of the table for the next couple of years. So Allen Robinson is now a member of the LA Rams on a deal that's going to pay him $15.5 million per season. Then you get a guy that just got his deal. The most recent money handed out to any of these receivers was that of Raiders slot receiver, slot dynamo, Hunter Renfrow, who got a deal on an extension for 2 years, $32 million. So he's going to be making roughly $16 million per year over the next couple of seasons. to remain in Vegas. So really, it's a 3-year deal. You tack on that those 2 years to what he's getting this year, but the $16 million over the next 2 years is essentially what he got for the season that he just turned in, where he was over 1,000 yards receiving, over 100 catches, and right around 10 touchdowns, like 9 or so on the season. He was outstanding and one of the toughest covers in the slot in the league, and he was rewarded handsomely for his. And what you're seeing too is a lot of these guys are in that 2019 draft class. So when we start looking back and give it another 2 or 3 years, when we look back on the 2019 NFL draft, the receiver position in that draft will stand out, because a lot of the guys that we're talking about either getting paid this offseason or looking to get paid are from that 2019 draft class, and they were not first round picks. So a lot of the heat coming out of that draft in 2019 is from rounds 2 through 5 or 6. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is a 5th round pick in that 2019 draft. Deontay Johnson is a 3rd round pick. Terry McLaurin is a 3rd round pick. DK Metcalf is a 2nd round pick. Deebo Samuel is a 2nd round pick. I could go on and on and on. A lot of guys from that 2019 draft class. AJ Brown is a 2019 2nd round pick. So that draft in particular spawned a lot of talented football players at the receiver position. Speaking of that 2019 draft, Christian Kirk is a guy that a lot of people, I think he might have been 2018, if I'm not mistaken. But let's see, 18, 19, 20, 21. And he's a free agent in 22. So, yeah, he would have been in the 18 draft. But, you look at his numbers, and a lot of people didn't think he deserved the deal that he got. I'm a proponent of get your bread while it's there to be got. And if somebody's willing to pay, it's funny because people always try to put a value on something or someone. And honestly, value is determined by what someone is willing to pay. So you can't tell me that this, I'm in the hobby, the card collecting space. You can't tell me what my card is worth. The card is worth what someone's willing to pay. If no one's willing to pay more than $5, the card is worth $5, right? But if somebody's willing to pay $5 million, then the card's worth $5 million. You might not be willing to pay $5 million, but all it takes is one person to be willing to fork over the cash, and that's what that card is worth. That's the value of it. So Christian Kirk, there was a team out there that decided that they needed to have Christian Kirk, and they were willing to go 4 years, $72 million to make it happen. And everyone was looking like, wait, what? Christian Kirk, a guy that has never had a 1,000-yard season in his career, you're going to pay him $18 million. This thing can get all the way up to $21 million with incentives. And really, that's what they're banking on, is they're banking on Christian Kirk, not what he has done in this league with the Arizona Cardinals, but what he's going to do moving forward for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see if they end up being right. But $18 million per year for Christian Kirk over the next 4 seasons. It's a lot of money. We'll see if it pans out for Jacksonville or not. But that was a deal that got people to thinking, all right, if he can get that much, my client definitely should be getting X, Y, Z. So the next guy in line, and then you get a couple of players that are sticking with their current teams in the league. So Brandon Cooks, a guy that I've said for the longest time, I can't understand why no one loves Brandon Cooks. It's the same way I've felt for a long time about Carlos Hyde. I'm like, Carlos Hyde, why doesn't anybody want to love Carlos Hyde? Now, this is on a much larger scale because Carlos Hyde has been a serviceable NFL running back, but he hasn't been a true difference maker. Brandon Cooks is a true difference maker. Like, when he's done, if he plays another 5 years in the league and continues to produce at the rate that he's produced at, we will look at his numbers and we will say Brandon Cooks has Hall of Fame numbers, and you won't be able to deny it. The guy's been in the league, I think he's going into his 9th season. And if I'm not mistaken, 7 of his 8 years in the league to this point have been 1,000-yard seasons. Like, the dude has been playing at a different level, and nobody really gives him any credit for it. And I think it's because he's played for so many different teams. He's played for 4 different teams in his NFL career: the Saints, the Patriots, the Rams, and now the Texans. And finally, someone just decided, hey, we love you. You know that? You're really effing good at this thing called football. So we're going to keep you instead of trading you away. And he got a extension that will pay him $19.8 million over the next couple of years to stay in Houston while they continue to try to figure out if Davis Mills is the answer at the quarterback position or not. They've got their number one guy in Brandon Cooks to help him along, and they're hoping that they've got, a 2 or a 3 there somewhere in the mix that will be able to help out with Cooks to help that offense move along. But good to see Brandon Cooks finally getting his just due somewhere. Now, he was always getting paid. He'd always gotten his money, but it was just crazy that he was always the guy that was expendable no matter what. And it was funny how many times teams fetched first-round picks for his services. That is another testament to how good he's been, where usually as you keep trading a player, they lose value. He kept getting traded for first-round picks, so that tells you that his value remained high in league circles. So he got an extension that will pay him $19.8 million over the next couple of seasons. Now you got a couple of guys that are making $20 million flat out. Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers got a nice fat deal this offseason to remain a Charger. He's been really one of the better number 2 wide receivers in the entire National Football League. And so it just made too much sense. They've got a good thing going in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Now that you got a quarterback that is legit in Justin Herbert, Jay Herbo is going to be, you could argue, the face of the NFL if he continues to play at the level that we watched him play at last season. And so you just wanted to keep that continuity that you had going with Jay Herbo, Mike Williams, and also Keenan Allen, KA13. I still feel like they need another receiver, a third option. They've got a bunch of guys that are kind of playing that third receiver by committee. And I also think they need to lock down a real legitimate threat at the tight end position. I forget what they did in the draft, to be honest with you, whether they addressed that or not. But at the end of the day, Mike Williams needed to be back. They took care of that. And so worst case scenario, even if they don't have a legitimate third option at receiver, nor a game-changing tight end, because they've been kind of doing this tight end rental thing each and every year. They're just going out and getting a new tight end after they moved on from Hunter Henry. Mike Williams needed to be back, and he's back on a deal that'll pay him $20 million per year. Same with Chris Godwin. Remember, this was a guy that was on the franchise tag for the second consecutive year. The Buccaneers refused to let this man leave, and he tore his ACL late in the season this year. So the question was, damn, is this going to affect his market? And the Buccaneers said, nope, we know what Chris Godwin is. We know what he is on the field. We know what he is off the field. We love this guy, and we're not going to let him leave just because he had a knee injury. So they went ahead, removed the franchise tag, and replaced it with a long-term deal. I think it's about a 3-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. That'll pay him $20 million on average for Chris Godwin. So now you start talking about the up, and then we got one more guy, and then we kind of just go into another stratosphere, right? So DJ Moore, I think this was one of the quietest $20.6 million deal a year contracts I've ever seen commenced. Like, DJ Moore got his money, and I don't know if anybody talked about it other than, a few media outlets. I don't recall anybody saying, whoa, look at DJ Moore over there getting some bread. This man gets a deal that's going to pay him, $20.6 million, close to $20.7 million a year, and nobody batted an eye. Like, almost like no one's paying attention to what DJ Moore's been doing in Carolina for the Panthers. And so he's been playing some good football, some sneaky good football. Especially it's akin to Terry McLaurin and what he's done in Washington. It's so easy to dismiss a guy when they don't have a legitimate quarterback. It's easy to not pay attention to what a guy's doing when he's having to catch passes from PJ Moore or Morton, or what's his damn name, PJ something, or you're catching passes from Sam Darnold or Cam Newton. It's so easy to kind of just get swept under the rug there, but he's been able to continue to produce no matter who's been under center. So he gets a $20.6 million deal. per year. Good for DJ Moore. And again, it's just a testament to what he's been doing in Carolina. So now you get to this. It's like a separation, if you will. So those are all the guys that have been playing good football, except for probably for Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson too. But those guys are getting up there in age. They're getting a little bit older. Now we're going into this separation phase where, okay, that all that money was good. That's quality money. But now we're talking about the upper echelon wide receivers. So now there's this line, this clear delineation in boosting money, right? So the last deal I just told you about was just a shade under 21 million. So now we're getting into the 24s and the 25s and the 26s and the 28s and the 30s of the world, right? Now we're in a different category. So now we jump to Stephon Diggs, who got a massive extension to probably finish his career in Buffalo. They've loved what they've gotten from him since the trade with Minnesota. And 2 years ago, he led the league in receiving yards and receptions. He was just as good last year. A little bit of a downtick. I mean, there's nowhere to go but down from the season he had back in 2020. But he's still outstanding last year and was a Pro Bowler. And so now he's got an extension from the Bills that will pay him $24 million per year for about the next, 4 or 5 years. He's an outstanding receiver, one of the best in the game, and he's being paid as such. Then you get to A.J. Brown, one of the bombshells of the 2022 NFL draft. Wasn't a pick that was made, but rather a trade that was made in the first round where we saw the Tennessee Titans pretty much say, all right, can't figure out a deal that makes sense for you and us, so we're going to move you. And they ended up moving that pick to the moving A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles, using the pick that they got from the Eagles in that trade to then acquire Treylon Burks to replace A.J. Brown. I think that was a big mistake, but we'll see what happens there. And the Eagles promptly gave the man a 4-year, $100 million contract. So just like that, boom, $25 million right out of the gate. He said he would have stayed in Tennessee for 22. Somewhere in, a wise man once told me, nothing's as good as it seems, nothing's as bad as it seems. Somewhere in between, reality falls. He says he would have taken 22. I don't know. Maybe he would have taken 22. I heard that the Titans were lowballing him and trying to give him 19. That was never going to happen, especially after Christian Kirk got 18 and DJ Moore got 20.6. There was no way you were getting A.J. Brown for anything less than 21. And really, if he said 22, okay, sign the deal. Like, what's the problem? Clearly, they didn't want to do that. And now they got to rely on Treylon Burks and Robert Woods to carry that offense. Good luck. You're going to need it. So now the newest Philadelphia Eagle is being paid $25 million per year. A deal that we just saw get done last week. The best part of waking up's the Rams Cooper Cup. One of the best receivers in the game. I love this dude coming out of Eastern Washington. You could see it even when he was in college. You go back and watch my draft wrap-up of Cooper Kupp, and I was gushing about this dude. Like, this guy's got a chance to come in here and really do damage. I couldn't have imagined, though, in my wildest dreams, he would come in and be as efficient a football player and as dynamic as he's been. But Cooper Kupp's been, when healthy, one of the best wide receivers in all of the National Football League, and the Rams just paid him as such, giving him an extension that will pay him $26.67 million per year. Now, the funny part about his deal is that it's actually a steal for the Rams. He'll be paid $110 million over the next 5 years, essentially. However, this is the part where Cooper Kupp's getting the dub. And that's what the players really care about the most, is he signed a deal in which he is now the highest paid in terms of guaranteed money to a non-quarterback player, the highest guaranteed money handed out to a non-quarterback offensive player in NFL history, with his $75 million extension, in terms of guaranteed money. It was an $80 million extension, and 75, a whopping 75 of it fully guaranteed. So Cooper Kupp's winning. You know, he may not be top 5 in the league in terms of his contract. He doesn't give a shit about that because he's number 1 in guaranteed money. And that, my friends, is where it really counts. So good for Cooper Kupp. He deserves it. And another guy at the receiver position getting big time bread. So now we get into the stratosphere that's out of the earth, right? It's out of the NFL world. And, you know, only a few receivers can even, you know, come close to this. And so it started with Davante Adams. Okay. He gets traded from Green Bay to Vegas. And then they give him this whopping deal. And it's funny to listen to Raiders fans talk about this thing because you got Raiders fans that will swear that this was them playing chess. You know, everybody else is playing checkers and they're playing chess. They overpaid for Davante Adams because they knew it would piss Tyreek Hill off in his negotiations, which it ultimately did, and force the Chiefs to have to trade their arch nemesis. So Raiders fans are claiming that I don't think that's true. I can't confirm nor deny, but they're claiming that as their own victory there. So it was a double whammy for them. Get the best receiver, one of the best receivers in the game, if not the best in the game, in Davante Adams. Pay him a ridiculous contract, which will then force the Chiefs' high-priced wide receiver to be pissed off and not want to sign with the Chiefs because they're not trying to fork over $30 million per year, which facilitated the trade. If they did have that in mind, sheer brilliance. They didn't have that in mind. They just were looking to get their guy in Davante Adams. They did, and they got him on a contract that will pay him $28.25 million per year. So it's a massive deal, one of the highest we've ever seen for a wide receiver, something like 5 years, $141 million or something like that. It was crazy. And so that prompted Tyreek Hill to say, all right, Kansas City, if you can't get me to 30, I want out. And the Chiefs was like, well, go ahead and start packing your shit up because we definitely can't go to 30. We got a lot of dudes that we had to pay money to already, including Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. We definitely can't pay your ass $30 million per year. So if that's what you're looking for, start finding suitors and we'll make a deal. And it came down to the Jets and the Dolphins, and the Dolphins won out. Tyreek Hill gets to go home. It's from that Florida area. And he also gets to lay claim to the highest paid receiver AVV in the league moniker and label, is he's being paid $30 million per year on the 4-year, $120 million deal he signed with the Dolphins. So that is the receivers that have been paid already. How about the guys that haven't been paid yet? Okay. So we talked about this is the offseason for the receiver position. It doesn't just stop there at the guys that have gotten broken off. How about the trades we saw this offseason with the receiver position, which added to the mystique of the position and the offseason that was the offseason of the wide receiver? So we saw Tyreek Hill get traded. We talked about that already. We saw Davante Adams get traded. We talked about that already. How about Amari Cooper? When the ball's in the sky and your QB needs a guy, it's somebody. He's now a Cleveland Brown. We talked about that very briefly when we talked about Michael Gallup getting his bread in Big D. He's now a Cleveland Brown. He'll pair up with Deshaun Watson whenever he gets off of his suspension. I'm adamant he's going to be suspended at some point. The question to me isn't if he's getting suspended, is how long is he going to be suspended for? But nonetheless, he's still making $20 million, is Amari Cooper. Then how about Hollywood Brown getting traded? Again, much like A.J. Brown, getting traded on draft night by the Baltimore Ravens to the Arizona Cardinals, reuniting Hollywood Brown with his college quarterback, Kyler Murray. He was ecstatic to go to a offense that is pass heavy, that is a spread offense where they're looking to spread you out, put receivers on the field, and get the ball to their playmakers. That was not the case in Baltimore. It is the case in Arizona. And this may propel Hollywood Brown back into that first round status that we looked at him as when he was coming out of Oklahoma. He was dynamic. He had, Tyreek Hill type ability. We may be able to see that. It may be on full display now that he is an Arizona Cardinal. This could get him paid. We'll see, because right now he was trending towards being, a guy that might get solid money from someone, but he wasn't going to command top dollar on the market. He has a massive season for the Arizona Cardinals, and his value could go through the roof. So that's another trade that we saw with a receiver this offseason. So the trades were just as plentiful as the amount of money being handed out, but we're not done yet. Still some dudes left to get their bread this offseason at the receiver position. So I think you're going to see at least two more of these guys get theirs. You got Terry McLaurin, you got DK Metcalf, you got Deebo Samuel, and you've got Deontay Johnson, all guys from the 2019 NFL draft. Now, McLaurin, I think, is the most imminent. I think his deal is coming sometime in July. I don't know if DK is going to get his or not, at least yet. I think he'll ultimately get paid, whether it's from the Seahawks or someone else. They've already turned down advances from teams that wanted to give them a first round pick for DK Metcalf's services. So if you're not going to trade a first round pick with the Jets, 10 overall, which would have given you 2 consecutive picks in the top 10 of this past year's draft, if you weren't going to do that, then you're going to have to re-sign DK Metcalf. So I think the Seahawks have every intention of re-signing DK Metcalf, but hasn't happened yet. He's staying away from training camp right now, or not training camp, mandatory minis right now, as they try to sort out his deal in Seattle. Deebo Samuel, I don't think is going to get a deal done with the 49ers. They've made advances towards him in trying to engage in dialogue to get a deal done. He wants no part of it. He's already made it known that he wants out of San Francisco, wants to be closer to home. And so I don't see him wanting to engage with the 49ers in getting a deal done. The crazy part for Deebo Samuel is he really does not control his destiny right now. Or I shouldn't say destiny. I hate when people say control destiny. You don't control destiny. He doesn't control the outcome of his situation, at least not for the next 2 to 3 years. The 49ers have full control over Deebo Samuel. They can decide, hey, we really think that you're too big of a part of our offense to allow you to leave just yet. So we're going to slap the franchise tag on you. He doesn't have to sign it, right? But if he doesn't sign it, he's not playing football anywhere else. So they've got control over him, and then they could do it again. Like, teams, if they want a player bad enough, they can slap that franchise tag on a player twice in a row before it gets too pricey and they have to let that guy walk. I can't envision the 49ers doing it more than once, but I could see them doing it next year, slapping it on him one time and saying, hey, if you don't want to be here, that's fine, but you're going to play here in 2023. And then he actually finally be able to leave in 2024 as an unrestricted free agent. So I just don't see him being interested in signing a deal. So I don't see him getting one. And then Deontay Johnson is a guy that was also a third-round pick in that 2019 draft class of receivers, and he's looking to get paid in Pittsburgh. And he's been their best receiver. Had the drop seeds back in 2020, kind of cleaned that up in 2021, and put up some big numbers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I think they feel like they've got a number one in Deontay Johnson. And if that's the case, they need to pay him as such. They just let Juju Smith-Schuster walk. They did draft a guy that could be a number one for them. We'll see, from Georgia in George Pickens, but they still have Chase Claypool. They have Deontay Johnson. And now they also drafted, if I'm not mistaken, another receiver, a smaller guy that's quick, fast, and dynamic. But all of those things could lead to the Steelers saying, not so fast. Maybe we don't need to pay you quite yet. We'll see what happens. I surmise the Steelers are one of those organizations that generally are very loyal to their guys that have done it the right way. I could see them taking care of Deontay Johnson, but they got quite a few receivers out there, that's for sure. So we'll see what they decide to do. They just let Juju Smith-Schuster walk. And they've let guys walk in the past like Mike Wallace, for instance. Mike Wallace and Who else am I thinking of? I felt like there was one more guy. I might be tripping. Anyway, so this has been a crazy offseason for the wide receiver position, and it's not over yet. I still see, at a bare minimum, one more guy getting massive money in Terry McLaurin. But I could easily see two with Deebo Samuel adding, DK Metcalf adding his name to the list of receivers that are getting paid and getting paid buku dollars. So, wide receivers, man. It's been the offseason of the wide receiver. That is for certain. And, at some point, Odell Beckham Jr. will be signed. Jarvis Landry signed with the New Orleans Saints. Beckham Jr. was just at Sean McVay's wedding. And Sean McVay said, hey, if you're going to crash my wedding, the least you can do is re-sign with the Rams. So, and there's mutual interest between those two parties with him going back to LA. He's nowhere close to being healthy right now. So that nothing needs to be imminent, right? But if he's healthy, he proves that he's healthy. He's going to get signed by someone, come the midpoint of the season. So that's another guy to look out for. But anyway, let's get to the comment section. Let's transition to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. All right. Let's see what you guys have to say. You guys know how this works. For those of you who do not, it's really simple. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, the way to do that is super chats. Can't guarantee that I'm going to get to your comment. But if you want to ensure that I read your comment, that I get to your comment, hashtag super chatting is the way to go about that. So we'll jump into these super chats real quick. Then we'll try to knock down as many of the hashtags as we can get to before moving on. Excuse me. And wrapping up this podcast. So LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy LT writes, need an NFC East roundtable with LB Law and Bad Dog, giving schedule predictions and final thoughts since it's NFL draft season. You're going to get that. I always like to wait until we get closer to the regular season getting kicked off. It's easy to give out that stuff right now, but it could change. You never know what's going to happen in August in training camp. All it takes is one or two injuries or, something like that to occur for a season to go down the tubes. So I like to get a little bit closer to the start of the regular season where you got all your horses in the stable and ready to go, and they'll be at the starting blocks when the season kicks off. So we will definitely have that. That you don't have to ask for that. You're going to get it. The Super Friends will unite here in the not too distant future, but I think it's a little too early for that because, again, so many things can transpire between now and the start of the season in September. Thank you for the super chat, LT. Let's see. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I just thought about something. I called PJ. Let me see. I think somebody said it in the comment section. There it is. Alex, PJ, and Red Wings. PJ Walker. I called him PJ Morton, the R&B singer. I was like, where the hell did I get Morton from? Subconsciously, it was just in my head. Anyway, I digress. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, HTTR for life writes, I never panic with deals getting done, but he says, TG, if Terry leaves directly after I get my Terry McLaurin Commanders jersey, man, we can't lose Terry. Trust me. He's not going anywhere. You have nothing to worry about. Not a single thing. I haven't been this sure about anything since I knew Robert Griffin III wasn't going to be the answer after the 2013 season. Like, I haven't been this sure of something since then. Like, I'm telling you, he's going to remain a Commander. He's going to get a long-term deal to stay in Washington. You have nothing to worry about. If I'm wrong about this, I will offer up the biggest double O in LouieTeeNetwork history. And I'm not going to have to do that because I don't guarantee things often because I don't like having egg on my face. I don't like being wrong, like blatantly wrong, like overtly wrong to the point where people are like, hey, you're wrong. I'm going to be wrong about a lot of stuff. Okay, doing what I do, you're going to be wrong. But as I've said many a times, I'm more right than I am wrong. And I don't go out on a limb and guarantee things very often because, you know, I don't like looking stupid, right? So trust me when I tell you, this is getting done, man. You have nothing to worry about. Nothing. Okay. It's taking a little bit longer than you would have liked, but this is the mode of operation. Okay. This is what they do. This is how these situations go with this particular organization. You can't look at other teams and say, well, they got their deal done. That's other teams. That's how they operate. This team, since Ron Rivera has gotten here, this is how these deals go. When it's nut crunching time, that's when these deals get done. Okay. The easy deals get done well in advance. The Logan Thomases and the Chase Rouilles of the world, those get done. Charles Leno Jr., those get done way in advance. Those aren't hard deals to do. Okay. But when they had to do the Jonathan Allen deal, it literally went up to right before training camp. This is going to be one of those types of deals, but it will get done. Nothing to worry about. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Duncan Wright, writes, Eagles got the number 4 wide receiver core, number 1 ranked offensive line, and number 1 rushing offense. We own the NFC East, you guys. Watch you got T. I don't know what you were trying to say there at the end. However, where are you getting these rankings from? I'm assuming you made these up or you got them off of some frivolous site, maybe PFF, which I don't subscribe to, whatever the case may be. Don't know how you got as high as 4 at receiver, but you have a quality group of wide receivers if everyone plays to their full potential. And you've got a really good group of tight ends. I actually love your tight end room. You've got a nice stable of backs. Your offensive line is outstanding. We've had this discussion already. Nothing you said. I noticed there was an omission in your comment. I don't know if this was on purpose, if this was done subconsciously, if you were trying to pull the wool over everybody's eye. Hey, look over here. Don't pay attention to the quarterback over here. Look over here. I got an offensive line. I got receivers. I got tight end. I got running backs. Hey, guy, Duncan, over here. None of that shit matters when Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. Okay? We've had this discussion already. Now, again, if Jalen Hurts plays out of his gourd or he doesn't have to throw the football very often and you have the number 1 rush offense in the league and you're running the football down everyone's throats, okay, you can get away with it again. But you're not winning anything of substance because at some point he's going to have to throw the damn football. As we saw against Tampa Bay in the playoffs, at some point he's going to have to throw the football and it can get ugly fast. So, again, I don't have any gripes with anything that you just said. I don't know if your wide receiver core is number 4 in the league. Like, I do have a bit of a disagreement there, but it doesn't matter. It's still a good group, whatever number it is, and that's subjective. There's no concrete black or white answer there. You may think it's 4. I may think it's 12. Who gives a shit? It's a good group. Tight ends are outstanding. Running back position is really good. Offensive line is outstanding. Still got Jalen Hurts, the quarterback. We've done this before, so that doesn't change, right? You're bottlenecking. We've talked about the term bottlenecking and what it means. That's still what ultimately happens there, Duncan. Thank you for the super chat, Duncan Wright. Let's get to any hashtags that we may have. HHC Lunar writes, I can't see Deshaun Watson getting more than 6 games. It may be tough, but money talks. I don't think he'll get more than 6 games. Either I think it's going to be 4, but they may want to come out, look like they're really coming down with the hammer, drop a 6-piece on him. He can then appeal, and they may bust it down to 4. I don't see it happening, but I could see a situation. I could see a path where they give him 6, he appeals, and it's knocked down to 4. But if it's 4 right out of the gate, he's not getting any less than 4. I think 4 is the magic number for me. So we'll see what happens. HHC Lunar also writes, I'm most shocked Julio Jones Julio is still out there. I could see him going unsigned until the preseason. I think he ends up somewhere like a Green Bay. That makes a ton of sense. A reunion with the Falcons would be great, but if I'm him, I'm looking to win a Super Bowl. They're not in a position to win anything of substance, so I'm not looking to go there. I think you're right about him not getting signed until the preseason, and it may be even into, the preseason where an injury or two occurs to a team that thinks they've got Super Bowl aspirations, and that's when, his line starts to ring and it gets hot. So I could easily see a situation where he's just hanging tight, really doesn't want any parts of training camp anyway. And he's like, yo, y'all hit my line when, we start to get close to the start of the season, because as a veteran, you need to be signed by week 1 to have your contract fully guaranteed. So he's interested in being on a roster before the season starts. A team could say, hey, we'll sign you after week 1, and then we're not on the hook for any guarantees. We can cut you at any time. If you're a veteran like Julio Jones, you ain't going for that. So I surmise he'll be on a roster, some point in August, right? I don't think it's a necessity to put him on the roster. And if you're Julio Jones and you don't want any parts of training camp, you're not looking to be on an NFL roster until, the second week at the earliest of August. So I'm not shocked, especially after the season he turned in last year, where he was injured the entire year, really didn't have the impact that everyone thought he could when the trade was made with the Falcons getting him to Tennessee. So I'm not shocked that, his market is cooled considerably, but trust me, there are still teams, eyeballing him and, looking at his situation and seeing if he might be able to make a difference. I think another team that will make a ton of sense, not really as much now as earlier before some of the moves were made, like Jarvis Landry would have been, New Orleans would have made a lot of sense there. Another veteran there with a group of receivers that's pretty young. You're getting Michael Thomas back, adding one more veteran to the mix, which they did in Jarvis Landry, would make a ton of sense. And that's why they added Landry. If they didn't add Landry, I would have thought that, that would have been a great spot for him in New Orleans. But I think right now, to me, that the front runner is still Green Bay. They've done a lot of things this offseason, especially with the young guys. And I think that's what's going to stop them from going out and getting Julio. But, if they have one of their veterans go down, they may call Julio Jones up. But right now, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. That's a good one. See, I think I got a super chat. And we got a couple of super chats. So I'll take those. Super chat here from MYKG2. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. MYKG2 writes, hey, Lou, what's up? What's up? What's good with you? He says, just want to drop a thank you for providing some of the best content out here today. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for your support and continuing to help the Louie T Network grow and prosper. Says, squad, hit that like button, #take command. Y'all heard the man. If you haven't already done so, there's over 150 of you out there and only 53 likes. Come on now. It's 3 times as many viewers as there are likes. That's preposterous. So if you haven't already done so, please. Doesn't cost you a thing to hit the like button if you do enjoy this content. So thank you for the super chat once again, MYKG2. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. HTTR for life, who writes, my Panther friends have convinced me to panic. I don't know why you would listen to them. I mean, why do they have any control over the way you feel in this situation? It's not like, oh, okay, I get it. I guess they're talking about from their experience with Ron Rivera and company when he was in Carolina. But this is different. Ron's in control here. Marty Herney was in control of the money. Dave Gettleman was in control of, being the GM when he was there. Like, there were so many different factors that were different, than that what made their situation clearly different than what we have going on in Washington right now. So I don't think your Panther friends have enough insight into what is going on in Washington to make you panic. It'd be one thing if the construct of our front office looked just like theirs in Carolina, where it was either Dave Gettleman or Marty Herney running the show. This is coach centric here. This is Ron Rivera running the show. And Ron, I can't envision life without Terry McLaurin in Washington, and neither can Ron. I mean, Ron, if you watch the press conference today, Ron essentially spelled it out for anyone listening. Terry's not going anywhere. We're not dealing Terry. Terry is a commander, and we're going to keep it that way for a very long time, is essentially what Ron Rivera said. Now, this is what negotiations are all about. It's about back and forth. It's about being far apart. And then finally, when it's like I said, nut cutting time, when it gets tight and we start talking about getting to training camp, because once a player gets to training camp, a guy, especially of the ilk of the Terry McLaurin, you know what he's going to say? I don't want to talk about my contract. I'm here now. I'm not going to do any contract stuff until the season's over. That's what Brandon Sheriff did. And that turned into, we're not getting a deal done ever. Okay. There was an opportunity to get Brandon Sheriff signed going into that last year. He wanted no parts of it. And once we didn't get it done before camp, Brandon Sheriff's like, I'm going to let my agent handle it. I'm not talking about a deal. I'm not just focused on football. That's what Terry's going to do. Okay. You don't want it to get to that point, and they're not going to let it get to that point. Just like they got a deal done with Jonathan Allen, they're going to get a deal done with Terry McLaurin. So, let's see. Got another super chat from my guy Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Metaphor. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Metaphor writes, I'm late. Better late than never. Ron, true leader. Terry, soon. JDR, buffoon. But he said, but hey, he's got rights. Just didn't keep his responsibilities. Getting more excited. I mean, that's a very, excuse me. I think it's a very, what's the word I'm looking for here? That is a spot on tweet. The word, I can't find the word that I'm looking for. It'll come to me eventually. But that sums it up pretty much. Is I knew Ron would do the right thing eventually. I just felt like it took too long. But again, better late than never. So he nips that in the bud. And efficient was the word. That's a very efficient tweet. Because that's everything that I've been saying, but summed up in probably 20 words maybe. Terry is going to be signed soon. I'm not worried, and neither should you. JDR, I won't call him a buffoon. I don't really like to name call. That's not my thing. I can be petty at times, but he's done nothing to me to be petty, right? I get petty with guys that I feel like have either wronged me or done something to something I care about, and I don't think he's done that intentionally. I don't think there was any malicious intent behind Jack Del Rio's tweets. To think that's how he feels. He just wasn't thinking about the ramifications of those tweets. That's all. And again, I don't have any issues with him or how he feels. I don't agree with him, but that's fine. And so, like you said, he's got rights. Again, that's why Ron had to step in, because the distraction. I talked about it on the video that I posted today. Every dude, with the exception of De'Ami Brown, had to answer some form of a Jack Del Rio question. That's the problem with him tweeting, right? It's not what he said or how he chose to say it or what, platform he did it on. It's the fact that it's going to cause a distraction. Okay. That's where the problem lies. The problem, comes back to you did it on social media, you're getting into it. But even with all the shit he had done on social media, had he just kept his mouth shut at his press conference the other day, I don't know if we get to this point. But he decided that, hey, I hadn't been reprimanded yet. Ron hasn't said shit to me, so I'm comfortable in speaking my truth. And then that's when the shit hit the fan because he started saying a little bit too much. Lips got a little loose, and you started pissing people off. And you piss off enough people, and that's when you got to apologize. That's the climate that we're in today's society. You piss off enough people. I hate when dudes have to tap dance, have to backtrack and moonwalk and apologize, especially if you don't mean it. I don't know if he necessarily meant everything that he said in his apology, but it was something that had to be done. It's called damage control. So I'm excited. I told you guys that I was excited 2 weeks ago, like maybe a little bit more. I've been excited ever since the schedule came out. I've been really excited since the schedule came because they didn't screw us this year with the schedule. And then when you look at the schedule, when you look at how it's set up, we only play on the road in back-to-back weeks once the entire year. Once. We've got a stretch of 3 games out of 4 on the road. Once. One time. And we play 2 home games in a row. Once. One time. And it just so happens to be at the perfect time back into the schedule, weeks 17 and 18 to finish up. Like, what more do you want? The only thing that sucks about our schedule is the fact that we've got a week 14 bye week. Week 13 or 14, whatever it is. It's ridiculously late. It's like the same one the Eagles had last year. Really late in the season, like the latest you can have a bye. I'm not even complaining about that. It may work in our benefit. So that got me excited. Then looking at the roster got me excited. Then the players started talking. That made me even more excited. Listening to them again today makes me even more excited. Then, feeling like we got this Carson Wentz thing correct. But again, we'll see. We'll see. Carson Wentz could stink, and all of this could go to hell in the handbasket. But if he is what I think he could be, we got a chance to win double-digit games, to be right in this NFC East race, because I think Philadelphia and Dallas are going to be really good because they're playing soft-ass schedules just like we are, and I think they're going to take advantage of their schedule just like we're going to try to take advantage of ours. So this isn't going to be one of those years where you can tiptoe and backdoor your way to a 9-8 division crown. That's not happening this year. Somebody's winning 11, 12 games, and if you want to win the division, you're going to have to win 12 or 13 of them bad boys. That's what it looks like. Now, again, everybody's got to do their part to take advantage of this schedule, but everybody plays Jacksonville. Everybody plays Houston. Everybody's going to get a crack at Tennessee and Indy. Those are winnable games as well. Everybody's going to see Chicago. Everybody's going to get a piece of Detroit in the division. Everybody's going to get their shot at Minnesota and Green Bay. Those are all winnable games, all 8 of them, okay? Now, I already said, you go 6-2 against those teams, you got a shot to do some serious damage. All right. I think Dallas and Philadelphia are going to hold up their end of the bargain and go at bare minimum 6-2. They may even go 7-1 versus those teams because those 2 teams take advantage of bad teams. We saw the Philadelphia Eagles do that last year. They did not waste opportunities to get fat off of bad football teams. They took advantage of those opportunities against the Jets and the Lions and the Falcons, and they smoked those teams. I think they're going to do it again, personally. I could see Dallas playing down to the level of some teams' competition and losing a game, but I don't know if Philadelphia is going to do that. So I'm telling you right now, I don't think, unless Jalen Hurts is absolutely garbage can juice, and I don't see him regressing to the point where they're losing to Jacksonville and teams like that, right? I could see them not being good enough to beat Indy and Tennessee and teams like that because he's not good enough. But I don't see them losing to Chicago because Jalen Hurts stinks. It could happen, but I don't see it happening. So I'm excited, but cautious optimism is always my approach when it comes to this team. You have to be cautiously optimistic. You can't just go all in. And I'm not doing that. But I'm excited. There's no doubt about that. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Big Money Sunny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Big Money Sunny. Writes, loose lips sink ships, my brother. Indeed, they do, which is why I thought Ron should have nipped this in the bud sooner. But again, better late than never. I think that no real serious irreparable damage has been done. There has been damage, but it wasn't irreparable. I think we can all move forward, or I shouldn't say we. I think they can all move forward in a respectful manner and have him coach the defense and have no issues. So we will see what happens. Let's take another hashtag. See where we are. Took those two there. Red Wings 01. Writes, let me make sure I don't have any more super chats. And I don't. Red Wings 01 writes, I'm sure you already talked about the Terry to the Colts rumor by the time you read this, but man, Washington fans are losing their ish and Colts fans are really feeling themselves. No, I haven't talked about that because I'm not even considering that. I don't think that anything's going to transpire. I haven't even heard those rumors. Like, I'm not in that space where that stuff permeates. I'm not on social media a lot. That stuff, again, I don't want to call it toxic because that would be giving it too much credit. That stuff is frivolous to me. You know, if you're in enough of those Washington chat rooms, you're on Facebook in a Facebook group, if you're on Twitter or IG, then that stuff seeps in and you start to buy into some of that stuff. If you see it enough, ain't no way in hell they're trading Terry to Indianapolis. Sorry. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Again, you don't go out and get Carson Wentz and then trade away your number one wide receiver. Where they do that at? Where's the psychological sense in that? If you think that Washington's trading Terry McLaurin to the Indianapolis, or anyone for that matter, not just Indianapolis, you need to wash your face and get your mind right. The reason they went and got Carson Wentz is because they have a receiver like Terry McLaurin and all the weapons that they now have on offense. They know Terry is the guy. He's the straw that stirs the drink. They're not going to let him walk away because they drafted Jahan Dotson in the first round. That's not what they're going to do. They're not going to let Terry walk or trade him away because they have Curtis Samuel healthy. Do they really have Curtis Samuel healthy? Never, ever trust a man with two first names. Do they really have him healthy or not? Like, there's no plausible explanation for Washington not re-signing Terry McLaurin. Like, it's not like they've got this massive deal around the corner for a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal that they don't, that they're kind of saving all their pennies for. We don't have those guys on the roster. Who are you saving money for? The answer is nobody. Are you going to pay Montez Sweat? We'll see. Are you going to pay Chase Young? We'll see. But those aren't quarterbacks. You can survive without those guys if need be. Terry McLaurin, again, does everything the right way, and I can't stress this enough, and I don't want to do this again because I've done this enough. So I'll just say this. He's too important to the fabric of this organization, period, end of discussion. I don't really need to go into it any further. Red Wings 01 says, Pat McAfee's comment section is straight up delusional. People need to come back. Again, I don't watch his show. I don't know what he's saying, but anything that he says or he throws out there, especially for Colts fans, because of his allegiance to the Colts, is going to make people get excited. But this is the same guy that read off text messages from, a third party that Andrew Luck was coming back. Okay, yeah, right. Like, Pat McAfee, I'm not saying that he's an unreliable source, but I mean, his job is to entertain. If you're a Colts fan, what's more entertaining than the prospects of getting your hands on a real number one wide receiver, which they don't currently have in Indianapolis right now? They've got a hell of a number two in Michael Pittman Jr., as far as I'm concerned. But he's not a number one receiver. None of their guys are a number one receiver. And they just drafted another kid in Alec Pierce that he screams number 2 wide receiver. Like, they love collecting twos. All right. They still don't have a number one. 2 twos doesn't make a 1, just so you know. I don't know if you guys understand the math there, but 2 twos does not make a 1. So, yeah, they would love to get their hands on Terry McLaurin, but that's not our problem. Okay. We're not trading Terry McLaurin to the Indianapolis Colts. That's for sure. Anyway, I digress. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Big Money Sonny, who writes, oh yeah, I forgot. Yankees still whooping cheeks in the MLB. When you gonna switch that Braves hat for a real champion, homie? Salutes to the mob and Cherry Squad. Time out. Let me get a 30-second. Who won the World Series last year? Was it the Yankees? Did the Yankees win the World Series? Did the Yankees even get out of the first round of the postseason last year? Let me think. No, they didn't. Did they? So they didn't win the World Series? No, they didn't. Was it the Astros? Did the Astros? No. Was it the Dodgers that won the World? No, it wasn't the Dodgers. Was it the Mets? Did the Mets win? No, it wasn't the Mets. No. Oh, that's right. It was the Atlanta Braves. The team with the longest win streak in Major League Baseball this season. Yeah, that same team. The defending world champion Atlanta Braves. Put some respect on their name, Sonny. Okay. Watch your mouth when you step in this house. Okay. Because right now, use a small time play about a half an ounce now. Okay. 13 games and counting, bruh. Yeah, you might have the best record in the league. We'll see what happens when it counts. We know what we know what we're capable of when all the marbles are on the line. I can't say the same about you. So we'll see. But right now we riding a 13-game heater. Catch up. You're losing. All right. Anyway, I digress. Big Money Sonny. Oh man, my God, Big Money Sonny. All right, let's take a couple more hashtags. HHC Lunar writes, I know you disagree, but you know someone is going to sign AB, right? His career is unkillable. You know I disagree because his career is done. After what he did last year, there are a lot of things teams will forgive. They'll forgive a cancerous player in the locker room if he's worth it, age and, play on the field. That's why they put up with T.O. for years and put up for guys, Chad Ochocinco and all guys like that. They'll put up with the distraction that comes with that player if age and talent trump, the je ne sais quoi of the locker room, right? But when you get to a certain age, that becomes a part of the equation. Why am I going to put up with a 30, fill in the blank year old, wide receiver when I can go out here and get one of these young bucks? That's one thing. And then the next is that in sports in general, we frown upon quitting. He quit on the Buccaneers in the middle of a game. I don't care what the excuse was. I don't care what they told him to do, get in the game. He said he was hurt, yada, yada. He quit. The man took off all of his equipment as he's walking off the field and quit in the middle of a football game. Ain't no coming back from that. No team will touch this man with a 10-foot pole. He even requested that the Steelers sign him to a one-day deal so that he can retire a Steeler. I don't even know if they want to do that for his ass. So AB is not getting signed. His career is dead. It's not unkillable. That shit is dead. Dead, I tell you. Anyway, I digress. Let's see if we got any more hashtags that I'll take before we move on to our final segment of the show. Let's see where we left off at. So read that one. Let's get rid of that. Read those. And Craig, my guy Craig Smith. writes Josh Palmer at wide receiver 3. I know you drafted him out of Tennessee. I'm not a fan. You got to show me more, man. Gerald Everett at tight end for my guys, Lou. I like Gerald Everett a lot. I was really disappointed in what he did for the Seahawks last year. So I'm looking for a bounce back year. Obviously, it wasn't ideal. He got injured last year. I think he even got COVID last year. And, Russell Wilson got hurt. So all of those things were factors as to why he probably didn't play as well as I thought he could. We'll see what he does with the Chargers, with all the weapons that they have on offense. And, of course, Jay Herbo pulling the strings at the QB position. But we'll see. I think Gerald Everett could be a really big-time tight end in this league, but I got to see it. Because he never really did that with the Rams. He didn't do that last year with the Seahawks. And I think you guys need a big-time tight end to really complete that offense. If he could be that missing piece, awesome. If not, I feel like you need to address that next off season. Let's see. Let's see. We got a hashtag here from my guy, Alex. Alex writes, Brunson is cool, but I'd rather see you collab with my man Gate City Sports on a live. You are both the smartest and most logical YouTubers for both fan bases, in my opinion. Would be a great discussion. I may look into that. Brunson's a part of the Super Friends. Like, you don't kick guys out of, the superhero group. Okay, even if you don't love the guy, and I don't have any problems. Brunson is my guy, but I wouldn't mind doing something separate, with Gate City Sports. I'll have to look into, his channel and see what he's up to, and because I think that's the next evolution of the Louie T Network, is to start doing collabs. I've been I've done this the way that I wanted to do it, and now I feel like I can start branching out a little bit more. So I think I'm going to start doing some collabs, and we'll see. I'm going to be very selective in who I allow to come, bless the channel. You guys know that I'm very protective of my baby, so I won't just let anybody on. But yeah, I'll look into that. Let's see. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go ahead and get to our final segment of the show, and that's garbage time. So Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo are the last two QBs standing in an offseason that was one for the ages. We've talked about it already. And, had Jimmy Garoppolo not had the issue with his shoulder, I think it was his shoulder. It was either his shoulder or his hand. I think it was his shoulder. And it required surgery. He probably would have been traded already. Coming off of the season he just had, leading the 49ers to the NFC Championship game, whether you think he was responsible for it or not is irrelevant. He was the starting quarterback of a team that went to the NFC Championship and literally was within a Jaquiski Tartt interception that was dropped from going to the Super Bowl. And so whether you like him, don't like him, you got to give him his just due, So I think someone would have traded for him already. But what ended up happening with that shoulder surgery is that it allowed the offseason dominoes to fall. Teams weren't going to wait. That's the one position teams won't wait at, is quarterback. Generally speaking, if you're desperate at that position, you're grabbing after. You got to get yours while it's there to be got, because everybody's reaching for theirs, and everybody was reaching for a QB and getting it by any means necessary. Denver went out and got Russell Wilson. Washington went and traded for Carson Wentz. That's just how it goes. If you need a guy, you're going to go and get that guy. The Colts traded for Matt Ryan. You're not going to wait. So by him having to have that surgery, teams were able to not only trade for guys in the offseason, but they were able to draft young quarterbacks. Even if they don't necessarily believe in these guys, still a young quarterback with upside on the roster that, I don't really know if I need to trade for Baker Mayfield or a Jimmy Garoppolo. Baker's issue was, had he been available when the offseason first got underway, he would have been traded. But similar to Jimmy Garoppolo, his gripe with the Browns came so late in the offseason to the point where all you had left was the draft. But every team that needed a quarterback, Washington was interested in Baker Mayfield. But when they called the Browns weren't interested in dealing him at that point. And so by the time, the Browns were interested in dealing Baker Mayfield, Washington had already traded for Carson Wentz. Indianapolis had already said, hey, let me go ahead and go get Matt Ryan and stop playing. So the market for him had dried up as well. And Seattle was like, we don't want none of y'all asses. We don't want none of y'all bum asses. We good. We'll take our chances with Geno Smith or Drew Lock. We good over here, man. I don't blame them. But the team that I always looked at and say, what the hell are you doing right now? Like, what are we doing right now? Talk to me. Are y'all trying to get fired or what? What are we doing? Talk to me. It's Carolina. I'm like, guys, are we going to do this Sam Darnold thing again? Because we saw what it was last year. When you were playing teams that were ass cheeks, Sam Darnold looked like $1 million. You beat the Jets. You beat the Texans. You get off to this 3-0 start. It was phantom as hell. And Sam Darnold was absolutely garbage can juice. So we don't need to go down that road again, but that's where you are right now. I called the poor man PJ Morton, okay? But what the hell is his name again? PJ what? The fact that I can't remember his damn name tells you that he stinks. PJ, yeah. Come on. Where is it? PJ Walker. There it is. PJ Walker. He's trash. Okay. I think they got him from the AAF or some shit like that. You can send his ass right on back. He stinks. You had Cam. He's washed. And he keeps trying to tell anybody that'll listen. And he's got 1,000,001 excuses. It's COVID. I didn't have enough time to get in the playbook, this, that, and the third. All of these are valid, right? But you're washed, bro. Until you prove otherwise, you're washed. And nobody's going to give you a chance to prove otherwise. So you got Matt Corral, and I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. You see more than I see. So I know you saw this if I saw it. Robbie Anderson is considering retirement. He tweeted out, he's like, y'all, I'm not going to lie. I'm really thinking about retiring. And he got real philosophical, real religious and deep. And Robbie's been through some shit in his life. So if the man thinks it's time for him to walk away, by all means, he's made a good amount of money and had a really solid NFL career, especially after being undrafted out of Temple. Got no problems with Robbie Anderson if he decided to walk away. But you know what makes his decision to walk away a lot easier if he decides to choose that route? Is looking at the Panthers quarterback situation. You know what makes football not fun? When your quarterback stinks. When your quarterback is cheeks, it makes it so not fun to be a wide receiver. So when Robbie Anderson looks at the depth chart for the Carolina Panthers at the quarterback position and he's mulling over possibly retiring, and he sees at the top of that list Sam Darnold, and then after Sam Darnold, he sees the name PJ Walker, and after PJ Walker, he sees rookie Matt Corral on that list, and then as a potential consolation prize, Baker Mayfield could be at the top of that list, or Jimmy Garoppolo, but more likely than not, Baker Mayfield could be at the top of the list. I'd contemplate retiring too. I'd contemplate retiring as well. That said, Baker Mayfield, this is it for him. And and it's crazy to make that declaration. We've seen guys get multiple chances around the league that were number one overall picks in a NFL draft. But I think this is whenever he gets traded, if he doesn't get released. And right now, there are GMs around the league that believe both Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield are going to be released. Now, I don't know the cap ramifications for Jimmy Garoppolo and how much he's due to make and how much the 49ers would have to eat and all of that. To me, it doesn't make a ton of sense for the 49ers to flat out release Jimmy Garoppolo unless there's something financially that they're trying to do and they can't get it done because of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. But again, with Trey Lance going into his first full year as a starter, I get it, and I think, and I've said this before, and I mean this, so I understand the logic from the 49ers standpoint. The last thing you want behind Trey Lance is the guy that led you to the Super Bowl 3 years ago in the NFC Championship game last year. That's the last thing that you want. Him looking over his shoulder, thinking about, man, I just threw a really bad pick. Are they going to yank me for Jimmy? Man, I had an abysmal first half. Are they going to bench me at halftime for Jimmy? You don't want him thinking that way. You just want him to go out and play football. Mistakes are going to happen. Shake them off. You're not worried about, CJ Beathard or whomever. I think they just drafted another late round draft pick guy as a backup. You're not worried about any of those guys taking your spot. But you are worried about Jimmy Garoppolo getting back in there and making some shit happen. So from that standpoint, you probably need to move on from Jimmy. But also, in the same breath, if something were to happen to Trey Lance and he's a mobile quarterback that uses his legs quite a bit, if something happens to him and he's out for a significant period of time, your season is over. It's not if you got Jimmy Garoppolo still. So I think there's some things that they have to weigh in San Francisco. I don't know the financial ramifications, so we'll see what happens there. I think they're more likely to hold on to their quarterback than the Browns are, Baker Mayfield. They want no parts of Baker. He wants no part of them. This is an ugly divorce, and it can't happen soon enough for the Browns, but they're like, look, I need something in this divorce. And teams are like, yo, come on, man. Just sign the divorce papers already. Carolina's like, hand him over. And the Browns are like, I need to put some stipulations in this divorce decree, okay? I need some of my money back. And the Panthers are like, how much you talking, man? We'll give you some of your money back. It's like, we were thinking about like half. Half? Are you crazy? No. And the Browns are like, well, I'm not trying to give them like, look, man, either you take this deal we got on the table or you cut him. It's your choice. Because you definitely don't want him on the team, on the roster. That's clear. Anytime a team tells that player to stay away, as the Browns have done with Baker Mayfield and the 49ers have done with Jimmy Garoppolo, when a team flat out tells you to stay away, that means we don't want anything to do with you. We're trying to actively move you as we speak. And I think more so for Baker than Jimmy, there's a toxicity that exists there that they don't want him around because they don't want the bad vibes and bad juju that he'll bring to the table. Not to say that Baker would make an ass out of himself, but he's already done that with the letter that he penned to the fans and, pretty much putting himself in this position by, having his feelings, be hurt. Same thing Matt Ryan did, but the difference is Matt Ryan is a former league MVP and he's played in the Super Bowl already. That's the difference. Matt Ryan had a nickname, Matty Ice. He earned that nickname. You're Baker Mayfield. There's no nickname. You've stunk for 2 out of the 4 years of your career in this league. So teams are less willing to bend over backwards to acquire you. And that's how we find ourselves in this position and predicament. If you're Baker Mayfield, you ran your mouth as if you were Matt Ryan said, I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt. They went behind my back and they were this close to acquiring Deshaun Watson. He was pretty much lining up his squad to join forces in Atlanta. Like, you just threw me on the side of the road like I was yesterday's garbage. I didn't appreciate that. I want out. And the Falcons said, you know what? We love you, Matt. You might be mad at us right now, but one day we'll have you back here. We'll retire your number and we'll let, bygones be bygones. But you're mad right now. We know you're mad, and we're going to do right by you, and we're going to move you to Indianapolis. No problems. Sorry about the grief we caused. Sorry about how we did all of this, but this is how we had to move. That's not the way it's going down in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a liability right now. And for the Browns, they're ready to move on from him as a liability, and teams are measured in terms of what they're willing to give up to get a guy that is still a liability. If the Panthers haven't learned from what they did with Sam Darnold, then I can't help you, because they gave up more than anybody else was going to give up for Sam Darnold. And it wasn't like they overpaid, but they gave up enough. And they had to pick up the fifth-year option because they wanted to see if he could be the guy. Clearly, he's not. And so you're going to do that again with Baker Mayfield? I think the answer is yeah and no. Like, if the price is right, yeah, we'll do it again. We're desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But if you're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, no, we're not doing that again. We'll just wait for you to release him. And then it's not like Baker Mayfield's going to have a whole bunch of suitors when he's released, because everybody's already got their starting quarterback lined up except for Seattle and Carolina, pretty much. Everybody else has got a guy that they believe in that'll be starting week 1. So Baker's not going anywhere where he's going to end up being the backup. And if Baker is going to have a serious shot at starting somewhere, this needs to get done sooner rather than later. So the Browns could care less about Baker starting. That's not their problem. They could give two shits about Baker getting enough time to get in somebody's camp, get a hold of the playbook, get it down packed, and be ready to go throw BBs week 1. They could care less about that. They're trying to come up off this money that they got to pay Baker. And if they're able to do that, they'll ship his ass. It could happen 2 days before the start of regular season as far as they're concerned. They could care less. But it won't, right? If it's going to happen, it needs to happen before a team hits training camp. Honestly, the sooner the better. And as each day passes, to me, the likelihood that he gets traded, lessens, and that he's released heightens. So, and increases. So we'll see, man. Jimmy, on the other hand, is interesting because I think he's of more value to the 49ers than he is to any other team in the league right now. But in that same breath, he's also a bit of a problem for the 49ers if they hold on to him. And it's not of his doing. It's just the fact that that's how the human psyche works. If I'm a young guy getting my first opportunity, and the guy that just led this team to, the NFC Championship game is still sitting behind me, and I have a rough 2-game stretch of 2 games that were very winnable, there's going to be a quiet groundswell, quiet grumblings, and that groundswell will get bigger and bigger for that guy to come in. And no one likes to lose. So if we feel like we're losing winnable football games and this guy on the bench, you will lose a locker room that way. You won't lose the locker room if you keep playing Trey Lance, who by all accounts is playing well, or progressing well, I should say. 49ers seem to be very pleased with his maturation to this point. Easy to say when you're in OTAs and heading into mandatory minis, right? We'll see what happens when you get into training camp and you get into the preseason and we get prepared for the start of the regular season. But I'm bullish on Trey Lance. With Kyle Shanahan pulling the strings, you know how I feel about him as a play caller in this league and an offensive mind. I think Trey Lance is going to be outstanding for them, but we'll see. All in all, it's just hard to bring Jimmy back because of what it could do to the psyche of a young quarterback, especially if he's struggling at any point in his first year as a starter. So, man, interesting times for those 2 quarterbacks and those 2 teams with those quarterbacks that want to move those guys desperately. But I don't know if there's a market right now that will allow you to move these players for what you could have gotten for them once upon a time had you been more resolute in what you wanted to do with these guys. Had you known what you know now and you moved them a lot sooner, the 49ers always knew they wanted to move Jimmy. His situation was complicated by the surgery that he required, or he would have been moved already. But the Baker situation happened and developed so late into the offseason, right before the draft with the Deshaun Watson situation, that it really put the Browns kind of behind the eight ball. But they did what they had to do. They got their man in Deshaun Watson, and now Baker's kind of dangling in the wind. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 268th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Got a super chat here on the way out from my guy, Metaphor. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Metaphor. Greatly appreciate you as always. My guy Metaphor writes, first year as Washington Commanders, win the chip, Snyder at peace, sells. Absolutely not. If they win a Super Bowl with Daniel Snyder as owner, it will only empower and embolden him to want to own this team even further into the future and be more of an ass. It's almost like Jerry Jones. I think he wants to be Jerry Jones so bad, but he's not. Because he doesn't have that kind of standing within league circles, and he's not as respected, and he doesn't have that stature of a Jerry Jones, and he's a public recluse. He's not as well spoken as Jerry Jones, and an extrovert like Jerry Jones is. He's an introvert, but he wants so badly to be like Jerry Jones. He wants what Jerry Jones has in terms of Jerry's World and the compound that the Cowboys have for their facilities. He wants that so bad here in Washington, but he can't get that because no one likes him. He also doesn't have Jerry Jones money either. Okay, that's another thing he doesn't have. But Jerry Jones got big-headed. When Jimmy Johnson won those Super Bowls, Jerry wanted to take credit for it. He wanted to be a part of it, and Jimmy was like, "You go sit down in the corner and collect checks as an owner and let me do this shit. I got it." And when he got too meddlesome, Jimmy was like, "All right, let me out." And he hasn't won since. And I swear that's what I think would happen if Washington were to win a Super Bowl, is Daniel Snyder would be so full of himself that he would try to get involved again. Instead of just letting what happened happen and see if it can duplicate itself and happen again, he'd want to be more involved and be able to say, "Hey, I had my hand in the outcome of this team winning and winning big." No way he sells after they win. Trust me. Not the kind of guy that he is. But you're allowed to dream. I won't stop you. Got another super chat here from the Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for the super chat. The Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Greatly appreciate you as always. My guy, the Phillies Ace 34 writes, "What's good, Louie? What's good with you?" The Phillies Ace 34 says, "Are you worried if Scary Terry gets moved? And please take off the Braves hat. LOL. You're the man, my friend. Hope your family is good. Likewise. You're the man. You're the real MVP. And I hope your family is doing well. You and yours. And of course, I can't take the Braves hat off. I know what that symbolizes for you, man. It's pain watching the Braves do what they're doing right now. It hurts, especially when we just, 3 weeks ago, when we were, 5 games under 500, struggling, couldn't win 3 in a row to save our lives. And now 13 games later, we're 8-9 games over 500, playing the hottest ball of any team in the league, and you're still struggling, had to fire your manager. You're winning some games, if there's any consolation to that, but had to fire your manager. That usually never goes well. You got a little bit of a boost now, but you'll probably come back down to earth, crashing down to earth, and have another one of those subpar seasons. But we'll see. I'm not concerned with what your Phillies are doing. But in terms of Scary Terry getting moved, he's not. I'm not concerned in the least bit. I haven't lost one wink of sleep, nor have I entertained anyone that feels like he's getting moved, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not happening. I can't speak for what happened and what broke down in the A.J. Brown situation with the Titans. I mean, listening to AJ Brown speak, it sounds like it was just a difference in what his worth was. The Titans didn't want to pay him north of $20 million. He wanted 22, and they moved him. That he didn't mean what Terry means to our organization. And, that's kind of what I keep reiterating to people is you could talk to me about Tyreek Hill getting moved or, AJ Brown getting moved or Devontae Adams getting moved. That's all fine and dandy, but those guys didn't mean to their organization what Terry means to the Commanders organization. It pales in comparison. He is literally at quarterback status for this organization. Like, that's where he is in terms of his importance. There's no way he's not going to be back. Long term, that is. So I'm not worried. And again, as I've said, neither should, not you in particular, because you're an Eagles fan, you could care less. But if you're a Washington fan, neither should you. Neither should you. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 268th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me on this late night show. As always, you guys are the real MVPs. Can't thank you guys enough. We'll be back on Thursday. We will preview Game 6 of the NBA Finals. We'll talk about anything else that has transpired in the NFL, tie up any loose ends. And if nothing comes to fruition with any deals or any big-time news making its rounds, I may throw it back. We may go back, way back into time and make it a flashback podcast. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Throwback Thursday may be in order for us this week. So we shall see. But in any event, you know what it is. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. And of course, God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.